Am I sharing? Is it
You
on?
are sharing. We can see you.
Okay. This is kind of a new experience for me, speaking nicely to my computer. Usually, it's not what I want it to do, and we'll see if I can uh, wade through this. As she said, my name is Chad Taylor. I work down in Southwest Nebraska out of our Cambridge field office, which is located on Medicine Creek WMA. We manage 11 different WMAs out here, totaling nearly 30,000 acres. And today I'm just going to try to highlight some of our the stewardship activities on Medicine Creek. I know the theme is to kind of highlight the past decade. I actually have 2 decades out here, so we'll probably go back a little further than 10 years on some of this stuff. So as I said, I'm down here in Southwest Nebraska, and you can see the red outline is Frontier County, and then that blue outline inside there is Medicine Creek WMA. And the whole entire complex outlined by that blue is a little over 8,900 acres. And everything below the dam, that purple, is managed by the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation. They actually own this reservoir, as well as Red Willow, Swanson, and Enders. These were built for flood control as well as irrigation. So with that, we have with irrigation, you have a fluctuating reservoir, which creates quite a bit of exposed shoreline at times. The areas highlighted in pink, those are considered state recreation area, and those are managed as campgrounds by Parks Division. And then everything else that's not highlighted is WMA. And so we're looking at a little over 8,000 acres with the reservoir at conservation pool comprising about 1,800 acres of that, which leaves us about 6,200 acres of land. And that could be further broke down into a couple different habitat types. Mixed grass prairie, around 4,400 acres. We have about almost 900 acres of woodlands, most of those associated with the Medicine Creek towards the upper end, as well as woodlands that border the reservoir. And then we also, a lot of the canyons and such are wooded. And right now we have cropland / early succession habitat comprising about 850 acres. Historically, more of this land was broke out. A lot of it was reseeded back to native grass, and some of it's underwater right now. But so that's what we're looking at for habitat types. I started out here in 2000 as a permanent employee, conservation tech 2. And then I was hired as a biologist 2 in 2003. But as a tech 2, I didn't have a lot of say on what went on out here, and I was kind of surprised at just what we did, or actually, maybe I should say what we didn't do. It seemed like back then, the old school thought was, put up a fence, put up some signs that say habitat area, and you're good. You just let it go. But what I saw when I moved out here was just a lot of rank grasslands that I guess the best example I can give is just an old stand of CRP grass, heavy litter layer, pretty low diversity, fair amount of woody encroachment, a lot of shrubs. There was essentially no grazing since 1978 on this area, and very little fire on here as well. Quite a few invasive plant species with Russian olive, Siberian elm, locust, European buckthorn, some of the main woody plants. And then there's some smooth brome, Kentucky blue. We now have a little bit of frag that we're trying to eliminate. What else? Yeah, I don't know, just quite a few grasses. I think we're somewhere around 21, 22 plant species that we're actively trying to control or eliminate on this area. Oh, and then Eastern red cedar was everywhere. So when I was moved up to the Bio 2 in 03, I just kind of took a step back, what's working, what's not working, how can we improve it? these prairies are pretty important to me. Obviously, we're not making any more, and we all know, the story about prairies being turned upside down by the plow, and all the species that go along or that depend on those prairies. And so when it came to management, I basically just took a step back. Okay, what shaped these prairies, these grasslands? And climate, whether it's drought, rain, fire from lightning strikes, as well as indigenous peoples, and then grazing from large herbivores really impacted these grasslands. And so while there's a few of those I really have no control over, fire and grazing was something, we tried to target. And then tree removal. One of the first things I did as a biologist out here is we implemented some mechanical tree removal. And that picture there, you can see a lot of Russian olives up in the uplands. The entire reservoir was just ringed in Russian olives, as well as cedars. We had, it seemed like the elm and locust were more spotty. Certain paddocks would have more of it. But basically, they just spread from some windbreaks and neighboring building sites, stuff like that. So it wasn't as widespread as Russian olive, but the olives were everywhere. And so one of the first things we did was hired contractors to go through and remove Russian olives from the uplands. And, the public had a fair amount of questions. A lot of them don't understand, or didn't at the time, understand the difference between good trees, bad trees. A lot of them, trees, that's habitat, it's good for wildlife. Well, yeah, it is for some species. And so, we put some articles in newspapers trying to highlight our efforts and explain what we were doing and so forth. And so along with, wildlife management comes people management. And that was just part of it. And really everybody understands it now. They accept it. They like it. It helped them realize there's a method to our madness. And so that map there on the left just kind of shows some of our different treatments as far as tree removal. Most of these areas have been combed through at least twice, some areas 3 times, just getting stuff that might have been missed. Maybe something wasn't stump treated or with seedlings were missed, so forth. And, we're going to have to go through them again. It's going to be an ongoing deal. But as far as Russian olives go, I mean, they're 99% eradicated. Same with elm, locust, probably pretty close to that. European buckthorn, it's still going strong. We've got a lot of work to do there yet. So grazing was something else that was fairly easy for us to implement. I guess we did stick in a couple windmills to help out with water in some of these larger paddocks, like this stuff here on the west side of the reservoir. Also up here, this is a dry creek coming through here, so we stuck a windmill up there. That helped us quite a bit. We had to replace a lot of this boundary fence, went with wildlife friendly stuff, smooth wire in the bottom, just 4-strand, so forth. But with our grazing, our paddock size and shape is highly variable. Essentially, when I meet with a contractor to a local tenant to come up with a grazing plan, I'll draw a line on the map where I want that single strand hot wire fence to go. We work together as far as when we get cattle in there, when we pull them out. And a lot of times, as far as pull out dates, we just kind of roll with the punches. The contract is wrote up so that we can extend it for a longer period of time if both parties agree. And early on, I was the one crying uncle first. We'd graze things down. I'd start to pucker. I'm like, oh, what did I do? Is this going to come back? I mean, we just got things grazed down pretty fast. And inevitably, we'd hit some late summer showers or something. That stuff would come back, and you could hardly tell that we even grazed it other than removing some litter and so forth. So we, over time, became a little more bold, and now these tenants are the ones crying uncle first. We'll keep the cattle in there longer than maybe sometimes they want to. So yeah, our grazing intensity, our stocking rate varies, our duration, our timing. Sometimes we're in the early spring. If we have an area that has maybe some cheatgrass, smooth brome, we'll go in there early. We've even used it for Canada thistle. If you get in there pretty early, they'll graze the heck out of that Canada thistle. and then pull them out. And we'll send our technicians in there and we'll spot spray the thistle. That plant is stressed. It's way easier to find. It's much more susceptible to that herbicide. And so it's really helped us with our thistle control efforts as well. Our goal, graze approximately 800 acres annually. And our ultimate goal is to patch burn graze everything on here at least once over a 5-year period. This picture here just shows, I can't remember if we just pulled the cattle out when I took this picture. Seems maybe so, but you see a lot of bare ground. You see some hoof prints. You see different, some moisture in there. I mean, all that little micro habitat really helps create diversity out there. You see the cow pie down there. It's all part of that nutrient recycling. You see some western ragweed, which is really good for quail. That quail chick there, you can see. It'd be a lot easier for something like that to travel around on that bare open ground. This picture here shows year 1 after grazing, and again, you can see bare ground, so that quail chick could easily travel, navigate through there. It's got some overhead canopy from, say, aerial predators or thermal cover from the sun. You can see some of the stems from forbs and so forth. You see seeds on the ground. Those forbs are great for attracting insects, more so than some of our grasses. And then by year 5, as you can see by that tape measure, I mean, we're looking at about 10 inches of duff right there. And, when I started out here, that's what everything had, was at least a foot of duff. These were some of the last grasslands to green up out here. I think it was just due to cooler soil temps. And it's pretty easy to predict what's going to happen here. I've seen enough of this grazing that by year 5 that, we know it's going to look like that. So again, here's another photo. Year 1, you can see some snow in the mountain, western ragweed, a little bit of, I don't know, looks like marijuana, some other stuff out there. Year 1, this would be fall of year 1 after grazing. Some foxtail, you can see some native grasses coming back in, switchgrass, some big blue stem, sunflowers. And then again, by year 5, we're back to being just dominated by our warm season grasses on most of these grasslands. So what we're trying to do is just create different cereal stages around the reservoir, and just a number of different paddocks, and just to have diversity on the landscape. This here photo was taken in, I think it was 2012. We had a real dry year. We went ahead and grazed anyways, grazed pretty hard. Man, it was amazing. We just had all kinds of forbs come up out there, and just a big stand of sunflowers right here. But that, as it's very predictable, that land recovered, and as warm season grass dominated within a few years. So again, this was one of those sites that made me pucker. I wasn't sure if we're doing the right thing by grazing during a drought year, and I'm sure glad we did. Prescribed fires has been the toughest thing for us to implement on the landscape. As you can see from this map here, there's a lot of grasslands, canyons, and so forth that on private land that butt up to us. There's a few, crop fields. That helps. It makes me feel a little more comfortable when we start throwing matches out there. But fire has been tough for us to implement. It's tough for us to get enough people on our, to help us burn down here. Down in the southwest corner of the state, we get a lot of red flag warnings, a lot of days where we just can't burn, where we're out of prescription. And so when we get the right prescription, some good weather, we have to take advantage of it. And, one other thing that hurts us, or maybe handicaps us a bit, is we really don't have any crews from the south or west to pull in from, because we got Kansas and Colorado over there. So, there's just a couple directions we can go as far as pulling in crews at a short notice. And this photo shows some of the burns we've done. We don't always wait 5 years to do a burn, sometimes a little longer. We've done some burns where we burned back to back to back 3 years in a row. Just some of it were, just kind of using to experiment with, like say in the name of buckthorn control, and we've seen some real positive results there. Our fire size, it just varies so much. So, you know, any given year we might have say right here, we've got a fire break. Next year, it could be over here and we overlap. So this might have only been 2 years since a burn. This might be 5 years. And it's going to give us different habitat and we're going to get different results. And so we really get nice mosaic patchiness, if you will, out there in the landscape. This is just an example of a burn. We burned it in the spring. By fall, this is what it looked like right down our boundary fence. Everything to the right is private land. This is public. So those grasses come back really fast. As Brad mentioned, you know, fire is great. It does some good things. It helps recycle nutrients, get rid of that litter layer. It helps set back some of that woody component, but you really have to couple it with grazing. And so what we try to do is patch burn graze, try to mimic what the historic fire bison interaction that would have occurred. You know, those bison really sucked into a freshly burned area. So here's another example of a burn. We got rid of some cedars that helped us quite a bit. And we threw cattle in there right away. Or that's what we try to do now. Once we get something burned, throw some cattle in there and do patch burn grazing the year we burn it. You know, sometimes we get some really amazing results. They seem to target the grasses and leave most of the forbs. And it's a real nice 1-2 punch for us as far as creating some diversity out there on the landscape.
3 minutes.
How much?
3.
3? Oh boy. All right. We also burn right into our woodlands as well. We've spent a lot of time removing ladder fuel out of here, cedars basically around our native trees. Otherwise, you know, you set fire into that, you're going to kill the cottonwoods too. But for the most part, with the cedars removed, that fire will creep right through there, create some good diversity in those woodlands. Some more results of our burning that you don't really see with just grazing alone. You know, we'll get some big stands of bergamot or shellleaf penstemon, whatever. And I'm not able to predict when we're going to see this stuff. I think precipitation, the treatment, the timing, it all impacts it. You know, this area here at the bergamot, a year after that, it was just a solid stand of common milkweed. It's tough for us to replicate that. I should point out, and I forgot to do that right away, part of my summary for this presentation is that we have a kind of dual conservation philosophies down here at Medicine Creek. Our native landscapes, our virgin grasslands or woodlands, are managed with the goal of maintaining, enhancing, and restoring natural ecosystem function and native biodiversity. Now, our previously converted landscapes, the stuff that's been plowed under, we manage those with the goal of maximizing hunter opportunities while protecting, enhancing, and sustaining diverse flora and fauna resources. That stuff came from our focusing on the future. Those were some goals that were in there, and we really adopted those. So we really have two different philosophies. So the map here on the left shows some of our areas that were previously broken, and some of those are food plots. Some of them is what we call early succession, which is basically just annual weeds. And we really try to, again, just have a mosaic of different food plots available out there because these areas are heavily hunted. White-tailed deer and turkey hunters, pheasant, quail hunters. They really rely on this public land out here. And so the map on the right just shows a larger or exploded view of this right here. This is what we call Trail 13. And just an example, the black is early succession right now, just weeds. The brown is our milo that we leave unharvested. The yellow is wheat stubble, and the blue is green wheat. And we just have a 3-way rotation through there. Every now and then we'll move the early succession to somewhere else, and just to otherwise, if we leave that early succession too long, it becomes dominated by common mullein and cheatgrass and some less desirable plants. Another thing we did is we put in field borders along here. The previous tenants would farm right up to our trails, and you drive along there, you might see a pheasant or turkey, they'd just scatter. So we put in field borders anywhere from 75 to 100-foot wide strips of native grass. And it really provided some security cover. And now when you drive along there, you could see deer out there, and they won't even scatter. They might see the top of your truck, but they just feel so much more secure, I think, with that security cover. And then some other things we did is we put in buffer strips anywhere it bordered the reservoir or the creek or anything like that. And that those we went 150 foot wide on those. Food plots, I mean, you can see on there some of the different crops we've tried. Alfalfa, I really like that. And some of the stuff we plant ourselves, some of it we share crop, some we contract, some we cash rent. You know, we've used all of those different methods to get it. Some early succession, you know, this was heavily, dominated by smooth brome. Went in with glyphosate early, hit it once or twice. Get a lot of nice weeds come there, annual weeds. It's really good for a lot of your farm game species like pheasants. So those are some of our goals for spraying brome and so forth. What else? Okay, here's a picture kind of showing some of these field borders. This would have been farmed right up to this trail and farmed right up to the reservoir. So you can kind of see the buffer strip there and the field border there. All right, there's the view from my office. And when I started here, you could just barely see the lake. There were so many Russian olives and cedars, and well, pretty nice view. How am I for time?
We can start answering questions. You've got a couple in the queue. If you want to talk for about 2 more minutes, we can probably do that.